Lionel Messi has scored more World Cup goals than anyone alive. In the 73rd minute against Cape Verde, he lined up for one more, the free kick he's owned for 20 years. What happened next made headlines for a week. What happened 3 weeks after that barely made headlines at all, and it's the part of this story that should bother you more than the save did. Subscribe now, because a 40-year-old just delivered one of the biggest saves of his career against the greatest player alive, and football still hasn't decided he's worth a phone call. Argentina won that round of 32 match 3-2 in extra time. Messi did what Messi does, and by full time he'd become the first player, man or woman, to reach 20 World Cup goals. 2 days later, the story dominating global football conversation wasn't the record. It was the goalkeeper who'd denied him, walking into a presidential palace. On July 5, 2026, Cape Verde's Independence Day, thousands of people packed Nelson Mandela Praia International Airport. Flags, drums, chanting loud enough to swallow the runway noise. The team rode an open-top truck through Praia to Quebra Canela Beach, and that night they were received at the presidential palace, where President José Maria Neves stood in front of the squad and said, "Argentina won, but Cape Verde triumphed." He wasn't being generous, he was stating something the entire tournament had already agreed on. Rewind to see why. Cape Verde entered this World Cup ranked 67th in the world, the second smallest nation ever to qualify, representing an island population of roughly 500,000. They opened with a scoreless draw against Spain, a tournament favorite, and Vozinha earned Player of the Match with 7 saves. Then a draw against Uruguay, then a draw against Saudi Arabia, 3 matches, 0 losses, and the smallest country by population ever to reach a World Cup knockout round. That earned them Argentina in the round of 32, and in that match, Vozinha made 8 saves in 90 minutes alone, finishing the tournament with the most saves of any goalkeeper in the entire competition. This is where the validation cascade stops being about football. Cape Verde's Minister of Culture and Sports, Antonio Duarte, said the run had cemented the nation's status as a great footballing country. Mario Semedo, president of the Cape Verdean Football Federation, said the team had raised the bar for what the country believed it could do. At the airport, a 12-year-old named Ivan Gonçalves waited just to catch a glimpse of the squad. Coach Bubista called it proof a small country could compete with anyone. The BBC reported Vozinha's Instagram following had jumped from a few thousand to more than 26 million in 3 weeks, and noted that in modern football, a following like that functions as its own form of currency. Every one of those voices was reacting to the same 73rd minute. Messi lined up for that free kick just outside the box. Before Vozinha had finished organizing his wall, the referee blew the whistle to allow the kick to proceed. Messi curled it toward the top corner. Vozinha dove full stretch and knocked it away. The clip spread everywhere, and so did the argument attached to it. A section of football fans turned the moment into a referee scandal, accusing officials of rushing the play to help Messi, one post calling him the biggest cheat in football history, before it was deleted. For days, the conversation wasn't about whether Argentina deserved the win. It was about whether the sport's greatest player needed the rules bent just to stay level with a journeyman goalkeeper in his first World Cup. And that's exactly the problem. The internet turned that save into a war over Messi's integrity. Nobody turned it into a contract offer. Here's the part of the story that got buried under the flags and the palace visit. As of July 1, 2026, Vozinha is a free agent. Transfermarkt lists him without a club. The Associated Press ran a headline stating flatly that Cape Verde's World Cup hero was searching for a new team after the tournament ended. A goalkeeper who recorded more saves than anyone else in the competition, who denied the greatest player alive in that same 73rd minute everyone was still arguing about, who gained 26 million followers in 3 weeks, left the biggest stage in world sport with no team waiting for him. Compare that to the man across from him in that moment. Messi's market value was never in question before this tournament, and it isn't in question after it. He didn't need a homecoming to remind anyone what he's worth. Vozinha needed one, because a homecoming was the only thing guaranteed to happen to him. To understand why the market stayed silent, you have to go back further than 3 weeks. His real name is Josimar Jose Evora Diaz. Born in Mindelo, a town of roughly 70,000 people. His father wanted to name him after Argentine striker Jorge Valdano, but local naming authorities wouldn't allow it, so his grandparents gave him the name that stuck instead. He didn't turn professional until 25, debuting for a domestic side called Batuk in 2007. From there, his career moved through Angola, Moldova, Portugal, Cyprus, and Slovakia. 19 years in leagues that never once produced a highlight reel. While he continued representing Cape Verde across 4 separate Africa Cup of Nations tournaments starting in 2012. Standing at the airport in Praia, he told the BBC, "It is a very great moment for us to be here with our people." He was 40 years old before a single moment of that career reached a global audience. Reports floated that he could follow Messi's path to Inter Miami. Nothing came of it. That's not a scouting failure. That's what happens when a market has spent 2 decades deciding a player's ceiling by age and league prestige, and then gets handed a moment it has no pricing model for. So what does it mean when the sport's biggest star finishes a tournament with his legacy already secured, and the player who defied him in that same match finishes it without a job? It means the flags, the airport crowd, a president comparing an elimination to a triumph, a 12-year-old waiting hours just to see a truck pass by. All of it doesn't automatically convert into the currency that decides who gets signed. Cape Verde got its parade. Vozinha got the world's attention. What he didn't get, at least not yet, was a club willing to bet on a 40-year-old whose best moment happened to be the biggest one of his career. Messi got the record. Vozinha got the reception. If you want to know whether a club finally calls, subscribe and stay with this channel, because right now the World Cup's most unlikely hero is also its most unresolved story.